Gravitrons, I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. So, um, I won this game about 5 minutes ago. And it was a really nice game for black until move 35 with a huge advantage. I surrender the draw. Didn't end up taking place, but there was the opportunity, and I think I might have taken some accurate moves by my opponent to get to that. But hey, we'll get there when we get there, and it's for this reason that we'll go through the game as it were proper to do respect to the game and to my opponent and to me. At which point I'll go over starting at move 34 or so the game played out against computer without this one glaring bad blunder on black's 35th move. Okay, so you probably wondering, I can't wait to see this blunder. I can't wait to see his blunder on the 35th move here. So I had the black pieces, 5 minutes per side. Let's take a look. King's pawn opening. Now you see this Vienna game actually occurring. This is either the second or third time this week I've played against the Vienna game. I play c5, figuring black can make a stake or stake a claim. Probably black can stake a claim in the center here while getting the c pawn in front of the knight who moves to c6. It's very important to get this pawn in front, or it just sits here on c2 for white or c7 for black. And it's actually a reasonably important. It's certainly an important pawn. The c pawns are quite important. Okay. Bishop to b5, right? There's no way. There's ways that black can maybe avoid doubling pawns, but that's a little tricky because, say, for instance, queen b5, then knight to d5 attacking the queen. Yuck. Black's already in trouble. So, it's not clear. Okay, so then maybe knight at g to e7. If we're really interested in keeping proper pawn structure, this is the way to go. I don't like it because then what's the deal with a black's dark squared bishop on f8? Anyway, I chose, well, you're going to double my pawns, and played bishop to e7. And my opponent chose to double pawns, and I made certain that choice with b takes c6. I chose to capture towards the center. We must not get too dogmatic in our approach to chess openings. If I capture d takes c6, I'm thinking this is just like the Roy Lopez exchange variation, and there's going to be a pin on a knight, and then there's going to be enough power on the h-file to prevent the pawn at h3 from capturing my bishop. No! I mean, I'm not 100% certain, but this position isn't like that. This is a different position. So I played b takes c6, capturing towards the center and taking away two critical squares for my opponent's knight. d5 and b5. It's a good move. Pawn to d3, right? Just straightforward. Now white has a very strong pawn chain, mostly in the center of the board. The white dark squared bishop has places to develop. e3 looks pretty darn good. d2 is a little bit passive. And in some situations might be nice for bishops that might find their way to b4 for black, or queen on a5. But that's not happening here, but it doesn't have to happen. So I think this bishop's probably going to e3 eventually. It doesn't have to go right away, and we're on our way here towards it. So I decided, looking at this position, probably while my opponent was moving or thinking, no offense, just point in fact, that wouldn't it be nice to play bishop to a6 and have stress against white's king along the a6 to f1 diagonal. Yeah, okay, there's this pawn chain preventing things, but we got some firepower there with c4, and if that doesn't work, c5, and then c4 again. What kind of plastic? But I looked at that and said, I don't like the way the bishop will be sort of like on his own. Just let me take a moment. Take those arrows away like I rarely do. Bishop to a6, just he's sitting here on his own without protection. Sure, he's got some scope, but even that's kind of closed off. I felt instead, I'm going to put him behind, again, this theme of being behind a pawn. For black, behind a pawn on the 5th rank, and sometimes for white, behind a pawn on the 4th rank. Alright, so pawn to a5 is kind of like a limiting move. It puts a barrier against white's possibility to break things open on the queen side, right? Pawn to a5, and we can find bishop to a6. The queen is protecting. Excuse me. The queen is protecting a5. So this is just sort of a longer term and more strategic move. It's considered a good move instead of an excellent move or best move. I'm okay with that. Knight f3. d6 is so very called for. Kingside castles, smart. Yeah, and with this, because we're going to play black's move. Okay, let's take a moment here. Where are we? 8 moves in. That's kind of soon. I would do. Let's go 1 or 2 more moves per side, and then I'll do a longer analysis, more in-depth analysis using the 6 fundamental forces of chess. h3, putting the question to the bishop, smart. I'm not going to capture on f3. Queen takes f3, and all of a sudden, white's queen is powerful on the board. I wouldn't advise capturing in most situations this knight on f3. And so my opponent puts in h3 because he, she, or they know bishop to h5 that's pretty much the only that's the prescribed move, the best move, and that's the move you'll see from most players. And now white's king in some distant future has an escape from back rank checkmates. There's the option of g4, though. That puts these pawns really out there away from their king. It's aggressive, so it's a double-edged move. And I just took a step back. I like this move by my opponent a lot. Rook e1. What an awesome move. Okay, so there's still a pawn on his knight, and my bishop's still here. But he's better than, or he, she, or they are better than he, she, or they were just a moment earlier. h2 to h3 to kick, it's still an improvement. And the rook on e1 is better placed than on f1. So some patience. My opponent is showing patience and strategy. I almost messed up like the Saturday Night Live skit. Strategery. But no, in this case, there's some strategy with rook to e1. I like it. It's a great move. So my opponent's gearing for the long term. I'm sitting here. I don't, I have this nice battery, an aggressive bishop. I want things to happen, but happen now. Pawn to g5 indicated as an inaccuracy, maybe, but it's not easy to see white's best response. In fact, I don't see it right now. Let's take a look. The computer thinks white is good after b3. This is this is not a long. This is an attacking move that takes that takes into account the fact that this knight is right now pinned and might not stay that way. There's the opportunity to push with pawn to g4 soon, and if h takes g4, bishop takes g4. Now we're talking with this pin on the knight at f3 is very, very strong now. The knight at c3 is out of position to lend a hand. It's gonna take all kinds of crazy maneuvers to even get him in the right square, and whether that square is occupied or attacked by an opponent, occupied by his own pawn or attacked by opponent pawn, who knows? This knight is, light years, as they say, away, and with 12 parsecs all along the coast there. This king is this knight is not helpful. The dark squared bishop will not. I mean, do you think 12 parsecs in light years was a long way away? This bishop on c1, he won't ever be able to recapture anything on f3. He never has since the history of time. Well, that's cold. That's cold. This pawn to g5, that's a cold ass move there, man. Excuse my language. I don't normally swear, by the way, and I'm going to actually not do that again because of the potential that children might be watching. But this pawn on g5, that's cold, dude. That's some cold, dude. The rook can protect, but with enough subsequent firepower, we might see white needing to give away the exchange. And the queen is already protecting. So anyway, g5, I thought it was a good move at a time. It's shown here as an inaccuracy. There's some long-term, part of the upside of g5, I think, if the computer is missing anything, which they don't usually these days, but part of the upside of g5 is g4. And after this swap of pawns on g4, this is a longer-term issue than almost any pin. This pin is a serious, serious deficit to white. Not immediately, but with a white king that's staring at almost no pawn cover, and a white knight on f3 that's pinned to the queen, this is dangerous. I know. I've walked through minefields. Pawn to g4. H takes g4. Bishop takes g4. So now 300 g4s later, now you understand us. The evaluation bar has moved up to reflect that black is doing well here. This evaluation bar, very rich, very, very wealthy evaluation bar of the 300 million records sold. Queen to f1. Yeah, that's good. Step out of that pin. I mean, for heaven's sake, that's the brilliance. There was some that I kind of poo-pooed or moved past rook e3. This is rook e3. Is maybe an inaccuracy by computer, but it gives the queen an opportunity to step out of the pin. So that's a strong move by my opponent as well. Bishop g5. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much almost a blunder here by black. I mean, this is a horrible move. Right? I'm just looking at knight takes g5. Oh, and then queen takes g5. If white wants to levy a discovered attack against black, it's not immediately obvious, and I think the best play doesn't completely destroy black either, with black recapturing on g5. So it looks like I had something better, as indicated by torch 4 light. It seems like there's a lot of moves which are pretty good, but not not a slam dunk, not 100%. Just h5. I like this one. h5 or knight f6. Knight f6 to develop the knight, right? You can't just sit there on g8. And h5 strengthens the support, or actually gives support in the first place to black's bishop on g4. There's now some air near the rook on the h-file. So some rook lifts would exist, like rook to h6 and then over to either g6 or f6, or in rare cases e6. So yeah, h5. Not only that, after h5 there's the potential of h4 and then h3 to get this one pawn storm, get things going, loosen up White's defenses around his king, and then find something in an advantageous way for the attacker, here being black. But at least a day and a half. No, about 2 days, because it's still right on anyway. Knight takes g5 and queen takes g5. This was not the best route, but black's here and in it and still not all that garishly clothed, but ready to win a game of chess. The queen steps out of any danger, right? The discovered attack against, there's a discovered attack against black's queen. We just step to somewhere safe on queen on g6. And now rook to g3 pins this piece. h5 is as best as black can do, as far as I can tell from the evaluation bar. Now f3 is going to put black behind materially. So I said we're going to get this knight out and see if we can scramble something. Scramble a good set of attacking moves. And actually here, even, because I didn't see this evaluation bar when it was happening, I thought, when the game was happening, I thought, my opponent, I don't know if I registered that my opponent was ahead 2 points of material. I knew my opponent was ahead some amount of material. However, I thought this is actually, this is not that bad. This is a pretty good attacking position for black. Pawn, and then this knight could come in handy as a sort of, death knell. But then the battery on the H file could be extremely strong, whether the queen's on H5 or H7. Bishop to E3. It seems like a move that helps prevent checks along this diagonal, the A7, G1 diagonal. But it doesn't. Those checks aren't coming anyway. Where's my dark squared bishop? And my queen's all the way over here. She's got other things to handle, other things to do and tend to. So, it's quick to criticize that this move doesn't really do anything tangible for white. But what are the other options? So quite a few here. It looks like trading queens was a good option for white. And I don't want to go in too deep here. I'll let this sort of show on to move. After black's 22nd move, somehow white has an extra piece in exchange for a pawn. So that's a material deficit that black doesn't want to face. All that, and bishop e3 blocks. Yeah, this is the more the stronger reason about this. Bishop e3 blocks escape squares for white's rook. This rook isn't going anywhere vertically on the board right now. And bishop e3, e3, this e3 square itself was a good square for this rook to find refuge. But now with knight to h5, the pawn is covering an escape square. The knight is attacking the current square, and the pawn is covering another escape square. The capture on g4, like I said, is not happening because of the queen. So it's going to be difficult for white to shake out of, and rook takes g4. We find queen takes g4. And just like that, black is rolling. Queen to f3. And with now I have the 2-point material advantage. Yes, most certainly I will trade queens on f3. And this is like all that opening all the way to this move here. You could, I don't know, sometimes it's the opening and then the middle game, but you lump the first 21 moves plus white's 21st move. And now this is like, to me, this is a different thing, right? You kind of hope that like the former you know, like in Back to the Future when they're sneaking around Michael J. Fox's character Marty McFly is sneaking around his other selves. This is this. We hope then we get this point as black that we left ourselves something that is all right, but this is like a different realm. Where it is 1955, if you will. So my first order of business was to connect the rooks. You know, these guys got to get up to 88 miles per hour. So they can be connected and have this long runway to get 88 miles per hour on the G file. Well, there might be 78, but it's not overall. That means maybe soon enough the technology of the time can do it. 1.21 gigawatts. 1.21 gigawatts. All right, now king to f2, rook to g8. Like I said, so this is either 87 or 78 miles per hour. Rook to g1, and I think just simplifying here is fine for black. We're going to play knight to f4 to cut the scope of white's dark squared bishop. Fewer options means a better chance of finding that bishop in some sort of trap. And if white wants to trade minor pieces on f4, then that's fine by black. So my opponent activates his or they king. It's the right idea, but it just doesn't work out because of black will play rook to h2 check and then just pick up. Well, the more straightforward way would be for black to pick up the pawn on c2 and still be threatening b2, but also be threatening to swap pieces with knight to e2 check, attacking the king and the knight, and when the knight captures, then the rook doubles back. That might have been a slightly easier path for black. I played rook to g2 first, and I thought now we can get on with capturing a lot of pawns. And so my opponent initiates a swap of minor pieces on f4. And black is doing very well. Cut the white king off. Put him, towards this last part. And then when after rook g3, the king moves and the f pawn falls, and this becomes how to win when you're rook ahead. And here's the move. Actually, this move looks like it's recoverable. It's possible to recover from black's point of view, but just this d takes e5. Yuck. Because it undermines the support of the c5 pawn. Knight takes c5, and then the king moves, and then knight takes d3. And I think black is still doing fine from a board perspective, but not from a board perspective with 38 seconds left. I was fortunate that my opponent sort of missed c5 here, or whatever happened. I was able to escape to the d8 square. Now this knight is not going to attack the king. Yeah, that makes sense. This knight, it would take him a long time many moves till he's in position to attack black's king. But yeah, so this was a bummer with the move d takes e5. It kind of wrecked a very accurate game. I was able to survive, and we see now the resulting gameplay and endgame that had my opponent resign. And I want to show, I don't know why, but if I had played correctly on move 35, this is the game that would have resulted. It is a different portion of the space-time continuum. Okay, so remember this, where I picked up another pawn on f3 and then sort of inched my way over here. Put the king to e6, there's no immediate attack, and if e takes d6, then king takes d6, and the important c5 pawn remains protected. So I'm just going to let this sort of play out. Dumping the rook here for the knight is fine. You know, black has decoys for days and is closer towards white's pawns than almost closer towards white's pawns than otherwise. There'll be a promotion on c1 soon enough. And then checkmate after queen h3, queen h3 checkmate, and the game's over. And this is this version where I didn't make that blunder on somewhere around here. I think it's somewhere around here. Is more accurate. It's a better game without the bad blunder in it. So that's fun too. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.